Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome back for day 2 of this Adobe Live. I'm your host, Fabiola Lara. We're back with the husband and wife art duo, Matt and Roxy Ortiz of Wooden Wave Art. Hello, guys. Welcome back.
Hi.
Are you
Thanks
guys
for having us.
Yes. Are you guys excited for day 2 of your piece?
We are
Pretty pumped.
I'm so pumped to see this come to life even further. Now, before we get to work, if you missed the previous stream, don't worry, you can view the replay on Behance or YouTube. Plus, check out illustrator Ava Redamonti as she creates surreal drawings in Adobe Fresco and Photoshop. And don't miss the Illustrator Creative Challenges with Andrew Hogredell every weekday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific. Right before the stream, tune in and challenge yourself with a new prompt each day. And don't forget, you can always replay our live streams, even when we're offline. So bookmark this page so you can come back to it whenever you need a little refresh from these two. And whether you're tuning in from YouTube or Behance, remember to drop your questions for us today in the chat. We want to hear from you. We want to hang out with you guys. So please don't be shy. All right, Matt and Roxy, let me take a look at the chat. We have Raul, we have Arshad, we have RB. Ooh. Everyone's joining us here in the chat. It's finally time to get to work. So why don't you guys reintroduce yourselves and for all the newbies who are joining us today, and then tell us what we're going to work on today.
All right. Hi. Well, we're a husband and wife duo, like she said, and we are artists. We do fine art. We do illustration, digital illustration, murals. So we do art both big and small.
Yes. Commercial and personal work, I'm assuming too, right? You're working across different mediums. Yeah. All right.
You're on Instagram, we're wooden_wave. And we do, as we're scrolling here, so you can see these kind of fantastical tree houses that we do. We love to make work that's inspired by nature and also the idea of sustainability and play. So we have some tree houses here that you can check out. This one's in the shape of a boombox. This one's over the water. We love the ocean and we're really inspired by it. So you can see some here as well. And so today it's very fitting that we're doing a whale shark illustration.
Yes, in honor of the hashtag Create Waves campaign between Adobe and the Ocean Agency. It makes so much sense that we're here live with you two creating this piece. I'm so excited to see how we develop it further from yesterday. So let's have a little technical hiccup here. Let's see.
All right.
Let's see. There we go.
Let's see.
Share the iPad.
Now we're going to see the piece where we left it off yesterday.
There we go.
Perfect. Okay, great. So, give us a little recap as to what we did yesterday for those who maybe missed it, who can also catch the replay, and then what we're up to today.
Great. Okay, so recap yesterday, we did a lot of whale shark drawing with just the pencil tool. And we focused on really building volume around those whale sharks, pulling from inspiration photos that we kind of arrayed around the composition. And you can see that we're just trying to get like the compositional flow of the piece. Today's goal, which we're really excited about, is we're going to introduce more color. And it's a little bit of a pivot from what our plan was originally, where we were going to go a lot more monochromatic, but now we're thinking, I don't know, just color is such a fun thing. So today I'm going to be diving into using tools like the magic wand, some transparency locks, and just multiple layers and different brushes. So it's going to be super fun. And actually, as a palette we were thinking of colors the other night, and we were thinking of, this is a poster Roxy and I did recently, and it actually features a whale shark in that corner. But just sort of talking about like our favorite kind of colors are a little bit off, muted blues, greens, and something like that. I might be using the ink dropper tool today to just sort of pull colors from either the reference photos or from this poster that we did for Jack Johnson's Meet the Moonlight tour that's coming up, which we're super stoked that we did that poster, because that was kind of always a goal of ours.
Yeah, that was a bucket list project there.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That poster looks amazing. It makes so much sense with the subject matter that we're dealing with today. It's like, I can definitely see the connections there. So may as well kind of use that same color palette or a variation of it to influence today's piece. I love it. And I think that's working smarter, not harder, which I always love to see.
And something I brought up yesterday that's kind of fun is I use a keyboard I'm working on an iPad, obviously in Fresco, but the keyboard is Bluetooth to my iPad, which allows me to do stuff like, and hopefully everything's synced up right now, F1. So I can toggle between my brush, my erase tool, just by pressing E. Say if I want to do ink dropper, which I will be doing, I'll just do I, and I'll just go straight to that. So I can kind of move quickly.
Yes, it's like having
my hand off.
Right. It's like having a little virtual assistant or something, as opposed to having to tap around the screen frantically. Yeah. I like it. And I think it makes a lot of sense too, because I'm sure you guys have a lot of experience with other Adobe programs. And so once you have your shortcuts, they kind of are similar across programs, and it feels more natural, right? Than like
Adobe's good that way.
Leaving your shortcuts all by yourself, behind you. You want to keep your shortcuts.
Oh no.
I feel
exactly.
No, definitely.
So this composition, you worked on this yesterday on the live stream. So give us your, I want to know where your head's at. What are you thinking? Give me a little more context here.
Great. Okay. So I actually have, and this is something that we'll oftentimes do, is instead of just trying to do a more finished treatment on all of the sharks, what I went ahead and did is I started to, if I can turn on these layers, I started doing some outlining of those pencil layers, because if I want to use the magic wand tool, if I go ahead and press W and I select, outside here, we'll go ahead and select that. You can see that because it's a closed line and because I used a different brush, and let's go to our brushes really quick and kind of show you what I'm using today. Yes. I am loving right now this Blake pen. And it's great because of the way that they'll keep your recent brushes saved. So I have my Blake pen. I've got Chunk, which I used yesterday, but also today I'm going to be using some really painterly brushes, like the Smoke Billow brush, Cezanne and Impressionist. And those are kind of brushes to create like a really nice texture and blends with colors. So anyways, going back to the wand selection.
That's a lot of really fun brushes. I mean, I just want to give a little call out for those who are watching and want to get access to those brushes. They come with Adobe Fresco already. I think that's something really cool, that a lot of the brushes are already free and included. So if you want to try these exact brushes out, you can. And I don't know if you guys have done it, but you can always download even more brushes for free from Kyle T. Webster, which is always crazy because he has so many brushes. You can really get lost in a fun way. Totally. So I just want to point that out for anyone watching who is interested in getting these brushes. You can, and they're free.
That's awesome. It's like a kid in a candy store.
It's like, you want it, you got it. Yes.
So let me just real quickly show you what the next steps will be. We'll outline all the sharks. And then using the magic wand tool, I'll select and maybe do an inverse selection to fill in those sharks, but on a separate layer. So I'll always keep my outline layers separate from my color layer. So this color layer right here, if I can reveal that with, all right. So you can see how when I turn that on and off, you can see how using a textured Cezanne brush mixed with maybe like the impressionistic brush, it's already creating this rich tone. And I'm still using, say, like the sketch outline below to sort of show where the volume, those contour lines that we had, still showing those contour lines, but it's all set to multiply on your layer transparency settings.
Oh, show us that if you can, just in case. Yeah, so I'm show us the exact thing that you're doing so that anyone who's watching and is just like, I want to know that trick, can get it. Oh man.
So I remember the first time I learned the multiply transparency function, it kind of it really changed a lot of my art making digitally. And if you go into select your layer, and then you go into the little layer toggle on the side there, and you see this blend mode is multiply. And what that does is it turns your color into a transparency, like as if you had painted on top of a sheet of transparency, but all the colors as well. And so what that does is also mix the colors below with the color that you've painted. The normal
I love it because this is a really easy way to build up color, which I can see already just knowing your work. Like I can see how it's super handy for you to layer those colors together, especially when we're talking about light. So I'm into it. I can see what you're doing here and I love it. What about the layers? Are you drawing each shark on a different layer? How do you how are you going to approach that in terms of just organization, because you have so many similar, like they're all sharks, so you could technically work in one big layer, but something about that feels intense.
Yeah, that's a good question. One thing I think I'll probably be working with all the sharks on one layer, but I do recommend a lot of times having more layers is just a safety precaution.
Yes, exactly.
Always move things back and forth. But I think for this one, for the simplicity of not having a 1,000 layers.
Right. Yeah, because you have like 16 sharks there or something.
Got a lot. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll just keep that clean line on one layer. I'll keep the pencil layer separate because I don't necessarily want to keep that. And then all the colors will be on one layer as well.
Okay. So we're thinking primarily 3 base layers. I'm assuming you may add more details on more layers or something like that, but just so that everyone knows exactly how he's working, I like to ask him, like, what is going on with these layers? Everyone approaches layers very differently. There are some artists who are just like, oh, I work only on like 2 layers for the whole piece. Which is very intimidating to me as an indecisive person who needs to have every layer just in case. Right. So I like to see your approach here. Yeah, okay. And what's going on with this blue?
Great. Okay. So this another addition, and yesterday we talked a little bit about how if I go to our original kind of idea, we were going really stark and thinking very graphic in nature, almost like a printmaking or a sumi ink kind of painting. I think we're going to pivot a bit and go a little bit more painterly. Not necessarily this is the final look, but I kind of imagined these sharks slowly swimming into the murk or the depths of the stars. And the beautiful thing is, like, you don't always have to treat a night sky as black. It can be a dark, rich purple or blue or dark green. And so we're gonna play around with color palettes. I've got a little color swatch here. You can see that I actually add that to the side, even though you do have a really wonderful palette selection tool. If you go down to that lower left-hand corner and you pull up the themes, you can create your own swatches. I personally like this first theme right here where it shows, that color. Those are nice kind of colors I almost pulled from. But again, I think today I'll be pulling a little bit from this color scheme because I've already sort of worked that out. And we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. I feel like that color scheme may work perfectly fine. But then if you want to add, like that orange that you have right now, or the like pinkier color, it could work for certain things. I like that you're telling us here how you're pivoting, because yesterday we were talking about that those flames might look like flames as opposed to, waves or whatever. And now you're like, we just problem solved by taking a slightly different approach. And I think that's smart. And it goes to show, like, sometimes in the middle of creating something, you have to switch just to get your vision across a little bit better. So I'm down. Whoa. I feel like it's cool to see things change and see how you're kind of making those decisions. And I can see the painterly style is going to work perfect for this. I feel
I think so.
It's going to work really well. And it makes sense because they're bottom feeders, right? Yeah. So like they would be going into the depths.
They definitely go to the very deepest reaches, and they'll also come up to the surface to eat the plankton. So it's like they live in the whole realm of the ocean, and we know so little about them. So there is a certain mystery.
They are very mysterious.
Swimming into the depths.
Yes, they give their own mystery gives you some flexibility, right?
Right. It's like, who knows? Nobody really knows.
Nobody really knows, so we can do whatever we want. I love that.
So let's see.
It's fun to play around with color. Yesterday when someone in the chat had asked that question about what our favorite color palette is, later we were talking about it, and we had talked about how the the muted color palette is something that we really enjoy, and recently on the poster that's something that we use. But then we were thinking about our work that people usually see is actually very bright and saturated and has a lot of that punch.
Right.
So it's funny how the styles or the colors that you use are different, like depending on the emotions or the piece that you're
or like the season that you are in your career, or maybe you just did a bunch of really bright posters, so now naturally you're like moving away from that. By the time that it's published too, and the time that you're working it can vary and you can have a bit of a color palette shift.
Definitely.
So I feel like
we've
it's
looked
natural.
at past work that way, where we're just like, wow, it would look so different if we were to approach that same project now. Even if the image is the same, you know, the color palette would be different and would be more subtle in certain areas or that kind of thing.
I totally agree. I've seen some artists who redo previous work just to see how they would do it with where they're at today. Is that something you would ever consider approaching?
I don't know if we'd ever go back unless it's a piece that we just really, really love and it, you know, we'd want to retune it. I think because we have so many ideas of pieces that we want to do, it's hard for us to go back to something else. We're just like, no, we need to.
One thing we've done a lot
next idea
of is the boombox. We have done that one quite a few times.
Yeah, the boombox treehouse. We've done 3 murals of that one in different places. So we have a boombox mural here in Hawaii, one in Worcester, Massachusetts, and then actually no, we have 2 here in Hawaii.
Amazing. And those are those like exact replicas or are they variations?
Variations.
I love that.
So that's Matt's example of one that we actually have changed up a bit.
I like that idea of seasons of art or seasons of anything in your life.
Anything. You know? Yes. I feel like that's how it is. Cause like you can, like we were talking about earlier, be obsessed with like one technique for a while. And then you do a bunch of stuff in it and you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm ready to move on. Just as your own natural curiosity as artists kind of shifts and evolves. Speaking of that, right? Are there any materials or techniques that you guys used to use a lot that you don't really use anymore? Like previous seasons?
Well, we used to be printmakers, so we used to screen print all our images, and then that was that phase or season.
Remember how
we don't do it at all anymore?
We would always just be thinking of it in terms of how many screens would this be? This piece?
Yes, that's totally a different way of thinking than like working right now on this iPad where you could just add infinite amounts of colors.
Right. Yeah. If no one knows what we're talking about when we say screens, for screen printing, for each color that you want, let's say on a t-shirt design or something, or a print that's screen printed, every color is its own screen. So when you're thinking of an image, you know, with this illustration that we have back here has, you know, I don't know, 100 colors or something. Yeah. So this would be something we wouldn't screen print.
No, definitely not.
But yeah, so you would always have to kind of distill and simplify your image into maybe 4 or 5 colors.
There's something nice about that though, the economy of having, and we actually talked a little bit off air about how when you have too many options, sometimes it's nice to like restrict yourself willingly or unwillingly, and you'll find some interesting results.
It's just a different muscle.
Good. Creative boundaries are good, I think. Like it lets you play within a certain area. You know, when you have too many options, they call it analysis paralysis, where it's you spend so much time analyzing and questioning what you're going to do that you don't actually do anything. You're just kind of paralyzed by your options. So it's like
I totally vibe with that. I need to pare it down. And I think like, for example, in this piece, you pare down the brushes that you're going to use to like those I think like 5 or 6. And I think that helps create cohesion within the piece naturally. But imagine if you were just looking at every single brush, you could spend a day just deciding like the top brushes for one piece. Exactly.
No, easily. You just get stuck playing like, ooh, this one looks fun. Ooh, this one looks fun.
Like you could draw the whale shark with a different brush, probably for days, and just try and figure out which one like was, quote, the best, right? Yes. But it's arbitrary ultimately.
Well, so talking about brushes, if I could just kind of give you guys a little insight on this brush and why I chose it. So this Blake brush, it's almost got like if I were to just pull a line and vary my pen pressure, it's got a nice sensitivity to it, but it also has a little bit of a warble. Like it's not overly smoothing the brush for me.
Let me see. Zoom in real good for us.
And then it's also got a little texture to it. It's got a little what would you call it? A tooth to it.
Yes.
Yeah, a tooth to it. And again, I think we're drawn to, whether it's digital or not, we're drawn to things that feel a little hand drawn. And so even though I'm looking to create a closed shape, like I'm going to turn this shark into pretty much a closed shape, because I am going to use the magic wand tool to select the interior of that shark and then color it on another layer. I still want to keep a little bit of that sense of grit.
Yes, I know what you mean. I think it
Yeah.
kind of gives it that like hand-drawn liveliness
Mhm.
that can be hard to create with like a
Mhm.
pen tool and Illustrator, right? It would be
Yes.
so slick. It
Right.
would have a totally different feeling to it. So
Right.
I totally understand that, and I'm so glad you gave us a little insight as to that, because there are so many brush possibilities, and I think this
So
one
many.
really kind of nails what you're after, that
Yeah.
hand-drawn feel. And you
I'm
can
warming
always
up too. I feel a little wiggly. Like I think as you go on, you also warm up your hands. So sometimes people do exercises before they start to
That's
get a
so
consistency.
true.
We'll
You can
check
also
back.
play with that smoothing, and if you
Yes,
play with
true.
the smoothing, it'll like
Yeah, let's do that.
naturally
I'm at 1, so let's increase
so this
my
is all
smoothing.
you? Oh my gosh. I thought the smoothing was like on, but like limited.
I haven't had my
is
coffee yet, so it's like
crazy.
it's not smooth. I need my coffee, or
I'm
maybe it'll be the
shocked. I'm
opposite.
looking at the chat. I'm like, can you guys believe that? Okay. So yeah, do something
All right.
dramatic so we can see the difference between
All
like
right.
you smoothing.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Then let's do the non-smoothing.
The non, that's where you were at.
Okay. Yeah, you'll see it.
But that gives it, that adds to that hand-drawn feel, right? If you use that smoothing too much, you would kind of lose that.
Yeah, I like a little precision, so I don't mind the warbles. But
I think it is something too, like when viewers see digital art, you know, sometimes they don't really think so much of an artist being behind it, you know, even if
Right.
something is really smooth. Like it took somebody a long time to create that illustration that you're seeing.
yeah.
Whereas if you have something that looks hand-drawn, I think it slows people down a little bit, even if it's digitally created, because then they can sense like, oh, somebody actually drew that, you
Yeah.
know? So I think there's a little bit
Oh,
more
you're
of that
totally
art.
right. You're totally right. Like if something is, even if you did the same thing and let's say use the vector brushes or Illustrator,
Yeah.
people would definitely think it was like, it just looks easier because it
Mhm.
seems
Yeah.
like seamless, like
Right.
shapes. As
Yeah.
opposed to this, you can really get that sense of like anatomy and precision that it takes to create it. So you're
Mhm.
totally right. That's a really, really good point. And I feel like with your work specifically, it can be so intricate. Like you're talking about the boom boxes. If
Mhm.
any viewers haven't seen it, make sure to check it out on their Instagram, Wooden Wave Art. But they're so intricate. And I'm immediately shocked at how much effort they require, because I can
Thank
sense,
you.
even if you're
Thanks.
making it in Illustrator, even if you're making it in Fresco, it's still so much detail to like think
Thanks.
out. So
Thanks.
I
Yeah.
respect.
That's why
Thank
most
you.
of our pieces take, I don't know, weeks.
Yeah, it
to
took
do.
a while. Yeah,
Ooh,
we're not.
I
we
want to
don't
know.
move super fast. Yeah.
We don't. It's just all of the time.
Even though
that
there's
goes
two
into
of
the
you? I'm kidding.
architecture.
I know, right? Imagine if it was just one.
No.
You get like
Oh my
one
goodness.
piece a year.
Yes, no,
It would be a
but I
really
mean-
good piece. It would be one
It'd be a
really
good piece, but
But I mean,
Better
that just goes to show like it takes time to create work, and
yeah.
these tools like Adobe Fresco and Photoshop, which I think you use sometimes, are just there to assist, but it still takes like so much
Oh, yeah.
vision and artistic input to get that output. It's
Yeah.
not magic.
No, it's not.
It is work.
Yeah, it is, it
Good
is work. So you were saying you're going to outline these sharks, and then you're
Yes.
going to use what
Outlines.
tool? The lasso tool, I think it was.
Yeah, last two. Let's actually let me just why don't we just do a little test right now, and I'll talk.
Let's
a
do
little
it.
bit
Yes. So we
Okay,
can talk a
so-
little bit about it.
This shark that I just finished here, or I just started, will not be completely filled in with, or not completely outlined. So that'll
Not be part of it.
not be a part of it. But these other two should be closed. And when I
Cool.
say closed, I mean like you're looking to see if you have any gaps, like Roxy pointed out, maybe there, even just points where your line quality maybe got a little thinner
Mhm.
and it might bleed in. And then I'm going to go ahead and select my magic wand tool. I can press W on my keyboard, or I
Okay.
can go over there and you can see that highlight tool. Inside of that selection tool, you've got your magic wand tool. And that's just basically going to go ahead, and when I drop inside of the negative space around these sharks, and it's gonna take a little while because it's probably thinking.
And right now you're on the layer that has those outlines, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at this one shark. This shark here, I'm on the outline layer. This shark did well. It is fully enclosed.
Because what
I'll
you're
breathe
looking,
in.
tell us what you're looking for specifically, just for those who have never worked with the magic wand tool.
Gotcha. So I'm going to show you the difference between, say, this shark, which you see they're called the marching ants, these dotted lines that are moving around the exterior. I had selected outside of that shark outline, and it selected all the space around there, and it goes and it bleeds all the way up to where it hits a line and then it stops. Now, if that line is an enclosed shape like this shark is, it'll just go around it and select everything on the outside. This shark, on the other hand, you're right, something happened on this one, which I'm going to just deselect by hitting my Command D.
Well, we can tell because the fin on the inside, on that lower part of it, got
it like
had
grabbed.
marching ants.
Yeah,
there was marching ants within the shark,
on the inside,
right?
On the inside. So what we know is that
Let's try
there's
this
a little
again.
leak, or basically like a little gap or a
Yeah,
break
look
in
at
the
that.
line of the outside,
See
and that's
it?
how it somehow got in there.
All
So
right,
you need to
people.
find the
Let's
leak.
find it.
They're like regular ants. They will find a hole.
Oh, there it is.
Right
Get in there.
there.
Found it. There's the culprit. All right. So now that's a good lesson.
There you go.
That was the shaky
That's where the
hand.
ants found a way into the house.
That's the reality. Like when you're creating these
Reality.
pieces, right? Like
All right.
sometimes you nail it and sometimes you have to go back a little bit.
No problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's try again. Wand tool.
Wand. Okay.
Let's select in that negative space around the sharks. It's going to go ahead and do that.
Looks
And
like it worked.
One thing I
Nice.
recommend is go ahead and also mess around. You see this toolbar here that I'm toggling?
Mhm.
This is your color margin tool or tab. And if
Slider.
you move, yeah,
Slider.
slider. Thank you. I'm short for words today. So if you slide that up a bit and you create a larger color margin, it's actually going to do something interesting where, like, if I had the color margin set to 0 and then I go to my paint bucket tool, and let's say well, because I want to fill in the sharks, I'm actually going to do this right here. I'm going to go to my more function and I'm going to invert selection. So inverting the selection means that now it doesn't look like anything changed, but now the marching ants are in the same place, but they're actually selecting the interior. So yeah, everyone follows along. It's basically, I want to paint the sharks. So the easiest way to paint the interior of the shark is to select the outside and then invert it.
Invert it. Yeah.
All right. So now that I've done that, if I go ahead and I change layers, I'm going to go to my color layer. And I believe
Because then that's faster than having to select each individual shark. If
Thank
people are
you.
like, why don't you just select the part that you want to be actually picking?
Then you'd have
But it's
to.
more work to go around.
We
and
have
pick
like
all the
10
sharks.
sharks here,
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
so it would
So
be
you
a
just
lot
click
of layering.
once. Click once on the background and then
Mhm.
invert, and there you go.
And then you have all
Okay.
of them selected.
So now I have those two sharks selected, and I'm going to go ahead and change brushes. I changed to my Painterly Cezanne brush.
Okay.
Cezanne. And then I'm going to select a color by just holding my finger on the shark there on the screen, and it'll select instantly that eyedropper. And let's see. Oh, look at that.
Nice. And now you can color like without paying attention to the lines, right?
Right.
Because it's cutting it for you, the outline.
For me. Yeah. And it's so rewarding when you can just sort of do
Don't
that.
have to worry about
yeah,
the background.
You do a little bit of legwork of setting up your files. You set up your line work, make everything nice and closed.
Clean.
Yeah, clean. And if you look at this brush, you see how it's kind of leaving these kind of
it, like,
splotchy
layers
patterns.
a bit.
Yeah, I kind of like that, but I can also go and change that in my brush settings and not in my smoothing, in your brush settings. You can go ahead and, like, I think what it's doing is it's probably scattering more
Or stamping.
maybe stamping more. So
Could
if I
be
stamp,
either.
yeah, okay, great. So if I increase the stamp count, we get a more unified,
Smooth line.
smoother
Yeah.
piece. So maybe I'll do that because those are some large stamps. Looks like big
Got it.
scales there. That's a lot cleaner. But what's beautiful about
Okay.
this brush is even when I go over that previous stroke, it's still there. It kind of creates a depth.
That's a
And-
nice
I totally
texture to
see
it.
that. Yeah, I feel like it definitely lends itself to feeling less flat, which
Right.
depth, right? You can see like the digital paint layers, which
Yeah.
is rewarding. And what I think is really cool about using this technique as opposed to, because in theory, you could go in with this brush and color the sharks.
Right.
But if you do that, you're going to have like this outline area with this brush that is uneven, or it's going to be the brush itself as opposed to this clean cut line. So I think that's something cool to point out, is like you're getting the texture of this brush in the exact shape that you want by using this technique, as opposed to freehanding, free filling it in just like willy-nilly.
Totally.
Yep.
Totally. And
So
maybe
you have some control.
one other thing that's really cool about having your colors all separated from your outlines is, let's say that I'm not really liking the color of the sharks, but I like the patterning maybe that I've created. So if I were to, let's say, okay, let's go ahead and, for example, I'm going to go ahead and put, that's a really large brush, but let's bring it down. What if I give it some stripes in there? This is just kind of an experiment I'm sort of thinking right now about. Okay. But within this color layer, let's see if it works, folks.
It's an experiment.
I'm hoping it works. Okay, that's kind of cool. So I've got these stripes in there. I think I'm looking at this, and I'm feeling like it's a little too green. I want to move it, like we were saying, maybe a little more blue. I think I can go ahead and I can lock transparency. So let's see what happens. When you lock transparency, it should, this might be a little tricky. It should.
I'm fascinated right now. I can't wait to see where this goes.
And let's change our color to, we'll go ahead and move. I love these color sliders because I can just go, I want to move it more in the blue family, and it stays in the same value.
Spot, yeah.
Okay. Maybe we'll pick a tool. Let's pick our brush. Folks, I'm a little worried. I think it might just, yay, okay, good. So you can see I'm going to undo it. What it's doing is it's going to change the color. Let's make our color change a little more drastic so you can see it. It's going to change the overall color to a more blue hue, like what I selected, but it's still going to maintain some of those inner
the texture of that brush, the lines that you made, all of the like painting of it essentially, but just changing the color.
Texture. Yeah, it changes the color, and that's the beauty. And there's all kinds of ways to use these transparency locks, but I think the value in this transparency lock tool, and again, you just go ahead and you'll click on your layer and you scroll down to unlock or lock your transparency. What that allows you to do is to not worry about colors too much and just realize that you can just go ahead and maybe focus more on texture. And then later on, if you want to shift that color more towards blue or yellow or whatever, you can have that option.
That's amazing because, like you said, you don't have to necessarily decide right now your final color palette, irreversible, nice. Right? Yeah. You can maybe tweak it and push it, like you said, more to blue down the line. And it goes for all the other elements in the piece too that are on separate layers. You could also adjust. That's so handy, especially I feel like when you're working like with a client project and sometimes things change, or they want make that blue more blue, and in the client's eyes blue was another blue. You can easily you can easily correct it for them without too much stress, especially when you compare it to something like traditional materials, which we were talking about earlier. If you had to change blue on a flat painting, you'd either have to actually repaint it, you'd have to scan it and like digitally manipulate it. It just is so
nightmare,
cumbersome. And I'm like, this is so easy. It's just like a no-brainer to go ahead and use the tools if you have them.
Exactly.
Help yourself down the road.
That's a good tip. That's a good trick.
Yes, that one's really handy. I've never used actually the lock transparency. I am more of a clipping mask kind of girl. But that one is kind of simpler, I feel like, and a little bit more clean. Sometimes the clipping masks in your file get a little bit outrageous after.
You get a lot more file. You need to be more organized with your
Yeah. So choose your battles.
Layers and files can get so out of control.
There's
If you don't label your layers, and then you have folders, and then oh my gosh,
so many ways to draw a whale shark.
you'll find some little schmutz somewhere, and you're just like, what layer is that
What
on?
layer is that on? No, I totally get what you mean. I love that in Fresco you can also name your layers. I'm not as diligent as I should be, but you can always open it up in Photoshop on desktop and then get like back organize is what I call it. Right? Before you send it off, you just like, oh yeah, no, this whole time I was working on it like this. Right. Very organized.
Yeah, because you have to actually click the layer to see the name of the layer.
Yeah.
Is there a way, and I've never been able to figure it out, to show your layer names on that kind of like, because if I go out of
on that little sidebar,
I don't think there's a way, but this is our official way to request it.
Yeah, exactly. And that would be nice. And then what else was I thinking? No, that's pretty much it. I just like to see the layer names. I do see on the side there, but say if I go over to this view,
you don't see it as much.
But that's okay. Once you start filling in things, you start to be able to see it on the thumbnail.
Yeah,
and that's where we're at right now.
Or we can always get bigger iPads.
Oh yeah.
That way you can have everything open at all times.
I want a curved iPad that just is just like
that you live inside of. I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah,
we'll get there, and then the keyboard will just be, in the air, like Iron Man, it's
mental
just like
keyboard.
Something we just kind of press on the side.
Yes, I can totally see it happening already.
Yeah, just kind of click it in the air.
Well, this is a little reminder for those watching the stream. Right now, we are with husband and wife art duo, Matt and Roxy Ortiz. We're creating this amazing whale shark piece in honor of the Adobe #CreateWaves campaign. If you're watching and you have questions, you're like, how do Matt and Roxy do X or Y or Z? You can just bring your questions to the chat and we'll answer them. Whether you're watching on YouTube or you're watching on Behance, drop your questions. We'll get them answered. So don't be shy. We're here to hang out with you guys while we create this piece. We, as in them, they're creating the piece, but I'm here hanging out.
You are. It's awesome.
We're participating together.
About illustration or murals or any of that. One thing I'll say too, what we use the iPad and doing kind of illustrations on the iPad for our murals. So when we're designing out a piece, everything gets drawn completely on the iPad first. So it's not like we come to the wall and be like, I wonder what we're going to paint today. We have our plan that's been completely drawn out.
That would be amazing, but that's not how we work.
Yeah, that's not how we work.
Roxy's about to drop some trade secrets here. Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I love it. I love it because I think a lot of artists aspire to make murals. Even something like this in some ways there could be a version of it that's for a mural.
Definitely.
And I think sometimes we see murals and if you just see a mural that's like huge and amazing, it's like, I don't even know how someone would approach that. Right. But there are ways, like you're saying, to kind of prep it so that when you show up for the mural painting portion, you're ready to go. So what kind of things in the mural tell me about the mural process. I know you guys completed a recent mural for the Honolulu Museum. So I'm like, tell me a little bit more, because I'm sure that there's viewers on the stream who want to know all about mural making.
So when we start a mural, we have, the idea or the concept, and then we sketch it out much like we would do a client piece or an illustration for ourselves. And then we get all the line work completely finished, kind of like Matt's doing right now, actually. This is not unlike doing a mural piece at all.
I'm in the line work zone.
Yeah, and we might even try out colors as well. Not so much textures and that kind of thing, but we would definitely try out color combinations if it's a subject that we haven't worked with before, at least just to get an idea of what colors that we would need to buy.
Yeah.
And then if it is like a client mural, then that would definitely lend us more to doing some colors in there as part of the sketch. But if it's for ourselves, not necessarily. But once we have that idea completely drawn out, details and lines,
like to proportions, right?
Yeah, to proportions, to the wall. Oh, actually, that's a really good point. So we would set the drawing canvas, on the screen exactly the same size as the wall, so everything's proportional. We even, because we talk about those multiply layers, right? We even just take a picture of the wall itself, and then we layer the sketch on top of it, and we can send that to clients as a mock-up and say, like, here's what the sketch looks like on the wall.
That's a really good tip, I think. And a lot of people maybe don't do that, and they'll just do a mock-up. But if you can get a photo of the actual space, then it helps them envision their space with your artwork on it.
Right, because you just adjust
which helps sell the artwork. And I think that's a huge part of being an artist, right? Is selling the application of your work for someone else. Right. So that's super, super handy, and something that, I feel like the Adobe Fresco and just the iPad in general can help you quickly do without having to be like necessarily like a pro at using anything.
Right. No, I think with anything, communication is always key. So it's the easier you can communicate what your vision is or what the piece is going to look like, then the less questions that people have, because they can just see it, right? Like, oh, that makes sense. They're not trying to imagine, to figure out, like, I think this is what they're saying they're going to do. They can literally.
And ultimately less revisions.
Yes.
On both, for everyone, right? For you and for the client, right? There's less back and forth. If you can just be like, here's exactly what I'm planning on doing and why it works for what you want and all of that. So that is amazing. And usually, do you get your, like, at what stage do you get mural approvals? Like the concept, is there a stage before it's done? Like what, or do you have the concept fully finished before it's ready to be created onto the wall?
The concept's fully finished. Yeah, so there's no questions of what
the color and everything
gonna look like. The color
can be,
sometimes it just kind of depends on what the job is. I think because our work is usually very highly colorful, people, even if it's a black and white sketch, people just know, like, this isn't going to be a black and white mural. It's going to be very colorful.
If it's a tree house, the trees are going to be green and
got it. Okay.
Whatever. It'll have a lot of color.
But you did mention the Honolulu Museum of Art, and for that, we actually have two styles. So Wooden Wave is known for our kind of fantastical tree houses where there's skate ramps and solar panels on the roof and greenhouses and
tanks.
It's like, if you're going to live in a tree house, there's all the things that you're going to need, right? For your energy, you're going to grow your food, all that kind of stuff. But then we also have another style that we get to work in, which we love. And that one's a bit more geometric and abstract. And that was kind of more inspired by us growing up and being from Hawaii. And so it incorporates Hawaiian, and when I mean Hawaiian, like Hawaiian ethnic,
Native Hawaiian
patterns,
iconography.
Beautiful.
I'm Hawaiian, so I kind of identify to it. We both grew up here in Hawaii. So it's a part of the culture that we really identify with, and it has an artistic style a lot of times. And you'll know the patterns and stuff like that.
The patterns, a lot of times, most people will see them in traditional tattoos. And it's kind of like a lot of, cultures where those patterns will show up in the cultural art. So here it's tattoo, or it might be in the fashion or the fabrics that were created.
But a lot of those patterns also have specific meanings. So when we say iconography, like if you look at our abstract pieces, they'll have different types of patterns that represent like the oneness of community, knowledge, family.
So a lot of symbolism.
Symbolism. And so that's kind of a fun way to work, where it's a little more metaphoric in times, and we'll switch it up.
That's kind of nice. Like a little less illustrative.
It is,
right? Like
more.
That's amazing. That's so cool that you can work in different styles. And we have a really good question here from Cody. When you do murals, whether in this style or in the more intricate illustrative style, do you use a projector to get the mural onto the surface?
Definitely.
Good question.
Cody. So that's why we'll have everything drawn out exactly as we want for the line work. So for a more abstract style, because it's not line based, that can be a lot more general in what we've created on the iPad, as long as the general shapes and patterns that we're looking to include are there. So we have kind of that framework. But when it comes to our tree houses, because they're basically like architectural draftsman drawings, if it's off,
Mhm.
the architecture looks often like the house looks a little
it looks
wonky or crooked
wonky,
or something.
Yeah.
So those have to be really dialed in. So but either way, we'll project that onto the wall. If anyone hasn't projected before, really you're just plugging the iPad or even our phone sometimes into
Mhm.
the projector, and then it just puts the image onto the wall. It takes some time to kind of scale it to the wall. We've had many adventures and misadventures of having
Scaling.
to project on different sized walls. I think our biggest wall is maybe like 40 feet high by 60 feet long or something.
Wow.
And so there's all kinds of challenges.
Yeah,
If you're,
because
like,
then you have to like get the
across road.
projector further back and
Mhm.
We've had rain and
then
Oh,
make
my-
sure the perspective
cold and
is
heat.
right.
yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh wow.
If the wall is taller than it is wide, that's a problem. And
Right.
we've had to be projecting from across the road. There's just all kinds of
Does it
different-
ever happen that it's
all
like
kinds of
too
weather.
light out that you can't see the projection?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you always have to wait until it gets dark enough, and depending on where you're at, that can be kind of sketchy, or like the weather is just
Or
like
just
about
not
to
great to
hail.
like the working process, right? Because you're like, oh, I want to start in the morning, but you have to start at night or whatever.
Yeah,
There
then-
are ways to do it where you could use your phone and take a picture of the wall and then mock up your artwork on your phone, and then use like the bricks, or if you have some marking patterns on
Got
the wall.
it.
So you could work in the day, but
Yeah.
generally we just project.
Yeah,
We wait till dark. So
yeah.
there's a flow to the
When
timing.
we do our project schedule,
You
we'll
pull
always
one
make
all-nighter
sure-
always.
Yeah,
Nice.
I think people have some kind of maybe thought that doing projecting is fast, but it's actually not. So
yeah, yes and no.
it's
I
one of
don't
those
think
things-
any part of mural making is fast in my eyes. It seems very labor intensive,
It is.
especially
It is.
especially compared to doing something like a digital illustration piece like you're doing right now, and then this
Mhm.
gets, let's say this were to get printed off as a poster. That
Right.
is a lot simpler than having to create the whole piece and then also figure out how you're going to
Yeah.
literally physically paint it onto another
wall.
surface. Yeah.
And even so, when you're projecting, people ask, have a question of like, what do you use when you're drawing it onto the wall? So usually it's pencil. So we're just using like a heavy duty kind of construction pencil.
Yep.
Some people use chalk. We've used chalk in the past, but we do prefer pencil. It just depends on the wall surface.
That's another thing that you have to think about is
Oh,
the
yeah.
wall and what color is the wall to begin with,
Right.
Well, sometimes it's brick. So the wall that we did in Worcester, Massachusetts, it was brick that had really deep, what do you call it? Grout lines?
Grout.
yeah, it was
Like-
the grout
Yeah.
was
Which, with a
frequent
paintbrush,
and
having
deep.
to have all these grout lines to paint over is a nightmare. And it was such a huge wall. So that was the first time we ever spray painted on, it was like on this huge 40-foot high wall. We've never spray painted before. And then we had to spray
I
paint.
feel like it's ironic too that on that Worcester wall, and that's in Massachusetts, and it was like the hottest wall I think we've done. We've painted like
in very
Vegas
tropical,
and Hawaii, and like it was a hot
East
over
Coast,
there.
you wouldn't have thought was going to
Yeah,
be the
we
hottest
were-
wall.
Wow.
So then you have the heat and the reflection of
The
the sun
paint.
just reflecting back at
It was
you.
such a fun
So
wall.
you get sunburned from the back and from the front.
We got
from the
so
Oh,
wall.
tasty on
beautiful,
that.
beautiful.
yeah.
I love it when
But,
that happens. Double sunburn.
But going back to the pencil drawing on
Oh,
the wall.
sorry.
So so you use a pencil to project, but for us, like we usually give ourselves about 5 hours to draw
Mhm.
one of our tree houses onto the wall. So even though you have, the projection on there and you're just tracing,
Right.
depending on the kind of illustration that you're doing, it could take hours.
Wow. Yeah. For those
Yeah.
treehouse ones that have so much detail, I could totally see that taking as long as it needs to take, essentially, because you can't really like guess a little part of it. Like, oh, I'll figure
Right.
this part out later. That doesn't quite work with those kinds of drawings. Like maybe for the more geometric ones, you can kind of follow the math a little
Right.
bit.
Yeah,
you
those
But
can
can.
go
with-
quite a bit faster, definitely.
Wow, so fascinating. And I feel like does that then influence your timelines with your clients? Like what how do you work with clients to be realistic with them as to what you can pull off on a
Right.
mural project?
Yeah, I
'Cause
think
I feel like
that's
clients
the
always
key.
have really big expectations, right?
Right. And I think that's always with any relationship is managing expectations, right? I think we mentioned that yesterday, right?
Yeah.
We're in this
Manage
season.
expectations.
managing.
Yeah, and I think some, clients will always want things maybe as fast as they can get them, but that doesn't mean they're open to whatever timeline you provide. They just don't know. Like a lot of people don't know how long a mural takes, and some people work faster, depending on the artist's style. Some murals can be really fast, where some muralists take a really long time to get stuff done. So it's just knowing your own work and communicating what you can do, so that you're not stressed out and that you're doing what you say you're going to do, right? For the client.
Right.
If you say
Everyone's
it's going to take a
happy.
week, then they're like, okay, great. It takes a week. If you told them it takes 2 weeks, as long as it takes 2 weeks and not longer than 2 weeks, then they have their expectations met, right? So it's just kind of knowing your own work, like what you're able to do. And so I think that's one of the things with even projecting. If someone wants to try a mural and they haven't projected before, definitely trying to do even something in your own house first, or for a friend first, just to see what the steps are. So it's not, the first time that you do one, as you said, like you could do one for a client, you're like, sure. And then you're having to troubleshoot everything on the spot, as much as you can figure something out in your own space first. Even just setting up the projector to project on the wall, backing it up, seeing, how far you're going to have to back up into your yard before it gets to that 20-foot width that you actually need.
It takes a lot of distance to get the whole wall sometimes.
Right. So. I think we've done this for a long time, and it still catches us off guard, where we're like, oh yeah, that should be enough space. And then no, it's not. No. So we've got to, project in 2 parts,
happened
right.
recently, in fact.
Right. So then sometimes we have to split up, the composition into 2, and then project half, and then project another half. And just the setup takes hours.
It takes hours.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of like how long the setup takes, how long does, let's say, finishing a mural take for your more illustrative style? And then for your geometric style, like what is the time frames usually for those kinds of murals?
Gotcha. I think we've trained ourselves to have murals take about a week. And that's because we are used to doing mural festivals, which are about a week.
And is that like with the concept included, or is that just the execution of the mural?
No, just the execution. Definitely.
Got it. Okay.
No.
Good to know.
So right. Because I would say just drawing something out for us for the tree houses would take a week, right? So just getting the composition drawn out and getting approvals and all
just
that
making
stuff.
all those decisions before you even get to the part where you're transferring it to your location, essentially.
Right. And I think because a lot of the projects are for, either a mural festival that's months away, or it's a development project where like the building's not even up yet, or, that store isn't even open yet. Like they're in the plans for doing the renovations of the building or something like that, or it's a new store popping up, and the interior design, like set aside a wall that's going to be like their mural wall. It's usually months in advance that we have for a mural. So we've got that time to, bounce back ideas and do some sketches and that kind of thing. Yeah.
That's amazing. Now for projects like the one that you're working on right now for the whale sharks, where it's, let's pretend that this a whale shark piece is going to be a poster, just inspired by the previous poster that you did. How long would something like that take, like a poster for a client? Just to get a little bit of an understanding of the difference in timeframes that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. Usually I'd say almost for any project, we'd want at least a month in advance, at least.
Yeah, the more the better. I mean, we're trying to push.
Ideal. Yeah.
Make sure people don't take on projects where they're like so stressed out that their work can't speak for itself, because that's not good for anyone really.
Yeah.
Client doesn't get what they want. You don't put out work that you're proud of. So try and get bored.
Yeah, we always try to give ourselves cushion. Like even if our work is in that more geometric style, it still ends up being really complex in relation to color. So it still ends up having 30 colors or something that we're having to paint. and then it's detailed in a non-line work type of way. So it ends up taking us almost just as long. We'll just dive into more pattern and that.
Right. You're just playing up different aspects of it. Right. So like maybe it's not drafting the sketch that takes you the longest.
Right.
Like you said, it's the color. And so I think sometimes people as in art directors or people just commissioning work fail to realize that even something simple can take a long time just because there's very specific decisions, right? They have to be like perfect decisions to make it look so simple. And so I'd just like to ask like what timelines people are working with, because in this session we're doing everything in essentially 4 hours, which is unheard of typically. Right? You would never do something for a client in 4 hours and that's that. You need time to discuss the idea, to like mull it over, to do the research, all of the phases. They take quite a long time. Just for anyone watching who's an artist and they're like, why can't I draw 16 whale sharks super fast? May not be able to, but you don't need to be able
to. If anybody answers that question, don't feel the pressure.
Don't feel the pressure. Don't ask yourself that.
I'm curious. I want to hear from the other artists too on how they're approaching things. Timeline.
Yes, let us know in the chat what your timelines are looking like, how long it takes you to finish a piece. For me, I usually prefer having a month with a client, just so I have kind of like a week of sketching, a week of color, a week of revisions, and then a little more just in case something happens.
Definitely.
On both ends, right? On both my end. Because you're also, I'm assuming, you guys have been working in this industry for a long time. Working on multiple things at once.
Exactly.
So you don't just need the month and you're only working on that one piece all month. That's not usually the case. You have multiple murals going on. So you need the month to be able to bounce back from everything and not like completely drain yourself.
Oh yeah.
Right. No, definitely.
From project to project.
Take care of yourself.
I think that is the life of the freelancer, right? Is that you have all these kinds of things going on, especially because we work in different modes. It's nice because we get a break from screens to then, work outside or working inside on a painting commission, something like that. But then it's also very jarring because it's like, okay, now we're done with this illustration. Okay, next we need to go to Home Depot to pick up a ton of paint to then drop off at the job site because that mural is starting in a few days, you know? And so
it's a lot of balancing, which is really cool that you guys have each other. I know we talked about that a lot yesterday, but like that must help to balance out the workloads, like, because I don't know about you guys, but it like you just said, it's hard to switch from one mode to the other. So it must be nice if one person can stay in one mode and the other person can do the other mode, right? You're like splitting yourself up. That has to be handy, I'm assuming.
It is handy.
Nice.
And then it's just literally having two people to do the to-do list too, right? It's like, okay, I'll pick up the paint.
Brushes, I'll get the brushes. Here's the drop cloths. All right.
yes, you guys are like each other's backup. I love that.
Right?
So so getting a little back to this piece that we're working on. So what perspective would you say this piece is in? I'm a little bad at defining it, so that's why I wanted to ask you.
Sure. Perspective, I think it is a top-down perspective.
But it almost looks like we're swimming with them.
I want to feel like I'm in the water with them.
Immersive.
Kind of immersive.
Yeah, it's not quite drone shot. It's more like diving through the depths.
Right. Got it. Yes. Well, because I know that you play a lot with perspective in some of your other pieces, and you're using, I think, I have to double check, but it's 2-point perspective for a lot of these tree houses, right?
Yeah, a lot of 2-point perspective. Yep, we've got
how do you like keep that going when you're creating these pieces and keep the perspective correct? Because I feel like that's really hard. That's just really hard to like just wing and even to learn. So I'm just curious if you have any tips for people who want to work in 2-point perspective.
You're the perspective guy.
Oh man,
I don't like perspective.
There might actually, and maybe someone can in the actual feed tell me, but there's ways that you can either set up your canvas size so that you actually define where those points of vanishing points are, and then you just know that all lines that are if a house is one side of the house, all those lines are going to move towards that left perspective point or vanishing point, and then all the lines on the right side of that house will move to the right perspective line, and it always exists on a horizon line.
And do you use something to keep yourself on that, or mentally you just get it these days?
I kind of, and if you were to like really dive into some of our pieces, maybe the perspective isn't perfect, but I have
But it's
been
believable.
doing perspective so much, that I know that each line as it gets higher up, the angle should be more drastic, and that two lines next to each other, if they're running parallel, they should look like they're narrowing as they go into the distance, as opposed to if those lines start separating and they're supposed to be parallel and they're separating in the distance, then you're starting to deal with like wonky. Perspective. Which
wow, I literally cannot believe that you are just like vibing with the perspective. Essentially, you're just like, I can feel that it goes like this, and so I just keep it like that. I was wondering if you were going to bring this up, but there are tools in Adobe Fresco for perspective, so I was just like, maybe he'll mention it, maybe he won't. But Cody in the chat is reminding me about them. I believe they're in the bottom right. You see this little let's see. The bottom right, you see that ruler?
The ruler. Okay, so this,
I think that they're in here somewhere. Cody might have to drop a link, but I'm pretty sure that beyond, or maybe that's just the drawing aid. Sorry, I misled you guys.
What about
the drawing aids kind of help. It still helps you for if you were kind of creating your own lines, but I believe that there's also, let me check it out.
Yeah, so this drawing tool, I believe you can set it up and then you can draw on it. Like use it and that's really a cool function.
It is really handy. A lot of people use this for drawing the lines for like typography and stuff like that, right? You could draw your own lines, but you can set up grids in Fresco. Oh my gosh. I don't know how to set them up yet. I'm sure maybe Cody can find us a link on the perspective tools. They are hidden in here somewhere, you guys. I know they are.
Save us.
Save us. I thought they were in there, but it might be this little grid. Can you try clicking that grid under the layer properties?
Okay, let me just
oh no, you're in the middle of something.
Okay,
sorry.
So let's see. What were we gonna do?
There's that like grid. There's like layers, and then there's the properties button, and then you see that little grid? No, all the way on the right.
Oh, this guy.
Maybe
Snapping.
It's there.
Oh, create perspective grid.
I'm pretty sure that's it.
I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in there. It has to be somewhere around there, right? I feel like.
I think that's it.
That's the name of it.
All right, so this piece we won't need it because they're organic shapes. We just basically are foreshortening things like volume, and that we don't need to have the 2-point perspective. But if we were doing a
treehouse for sure.
I'm definitely gonna explore that. It's funny how we don't even use that, but we probably should.
Yeah, we should. Sometimes you just get so lost in like the details of things that you don't.
Well, sometimes you have your own process and you're like, I mean, it's clearly working out great for you. Why would you need to throw in another thing? But for those who have seen those pieces of yours and are curious how they can pull it off, you know, you could start there. And for you guys, you can maybe use those down the line if you're trying to, maybe it'll speed things up for you or maybe it won't. You never know.
Okay, I'm going to do
tools are always good to have.
Yeah, they are. And speaking of tools, I'm going to go ahead and do this will be kind of fun because I have all the sharks selected. I'm going to go ahead and, actually the negative space selected. Ooh, look, I forgot one. I forgot
on the background.
Yeah, I tapped on the background. I forgot this inside part of the shark. There we go. And there. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to invert selection.
Okay.
And I am on my color layer. This should be kind of fun because you'll see it a lot more impactfully.
Okay.
Word.
And more dramatically.
I'm going to move my Cezanne brush
all the way up. Size 207. Wait, 23. Oh my gosh. Okay, huge brush.
And like the Fresco is like, oh my gosh, I'm chugging, but it's working.
It's working. You're just like taking one big brush to kind of color them all at once.
Yeah.
I wish we could paint our murals that fast.
I was about to say the same thing. Imagine if you could do this IRL. Okay, this looks amazing. This is so cool. You're getting like a really cool texture and speeding things up a ton.
Right. You can start to see Okay, so maybe that feels pretty decent for now. I noticed that I had an area or two where I didn't, over here, I didn't select those areas, but I can just go ahead and I can either erase them manually with the eraser tool, which might actually be fast enough for my purposes, or I could go back and select them on that line layer and
got it. Okay.
subtract it that way. But I'm just gonna go ahead and do that.
Get that background cleaned up a little bit.
Ooh, let's turn on our cloud layer. So if I go to this, turn on a cloud layer. Whoa, okay, that's
dang. Okay, nice.
Get moody in there.
Well, why
can
don't
you
we
go
move...
back to our property? You know how right now you have the grid selected? Can you select the one right above it?
Oh, that one.
That way we can see the layer properties of each layer as we're working. Okay.
Right.
So neat. So that's actually on normal.
This one's on normal, and if we moved it around, we would see it do different things. So if I move this up top and it's on normal, it's just gonna blot out the colors of my sharks because they're below. Right. But what if I go from normal and then let's just experiment and turn it back to multiply? It pretty much goes back to how it was. However, there's also color burn, linear burn. I mean, you can just mess around with them and you'll start to see
all sorts of different effects.
Ooh, I kind of like that.
Yeah, that's really cool. Do you often play with these layer properties in your pieces?
Yeah, depending on the piece, but I feel like it's always because I don't quite understand always how they're going to interact.
Results,
So it's kind of a toss up. But on this one, I kind of like how that's working. However, I did lose a little bit of my. But maybe I'll just run with that. It's almost cooler that way.
Yeah, you can always change it down the line also. I think it's really cool to see like happy accidents, right? Because you're looking for the accidents, but it's cool to create effects you didn't even know that were possibilities.
I think I'm gonna try one more option is I'm gonna move that shark layer to normal.
Okay.
And then I want to see this back at normal as well. And then so if I wanted to still see the dark blue of the sky in the background, I might, and not have the sky interact with the whale sharks themselves, I might just have them both on normal. And just for the purpose of building the piece right now, maybe we'll leave it at that. I think we should do some dots though, yeah?
I think some pattern would be nice.
Patterning?
Yeah.
Pattern, the whale shark pattern we were saying is quintessential to this whole thing. So would be cool to see how you're going to approach that because it is really intricate and like you said is going to affect the anatomy, right? Like you can't just put in dots kind of crazy because then you might mess up with the anatomy that you worked so hard for.
I know. So for that, I think I'm going to move this sketch layer up top, and I'm using my sketch layer as a guide again, and it actually lends a lot to the piece. I kind of like that.
Yeah, it's a guide not just for the outlines though, it's for that the curvature of the anatomy. You were speaking to that yesterday, so I just want to remind those who are just tuning in today that the sketch has a lot of that dimension that he still is deciding in terms of how he's going to finish it.
And sometimes we'll even leave like certain artists that we're really a fan of, like we mentioned Jay Ryan. He'll do screen prints where he'll leave the sketch in there, and there's a certain quality to that if you're going for that. Like I said, we're really partial to hand-drawn things. But for this, it's really going to show me the volume of the dots. And let's real quick check our reference images.
Yes.
You can see how they've got dots between lines, mostly. Well, that's a beautiful one. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if we can transfer that.
And a lot of dots like up at the head and a lot of lines on the
dots
bottom.
at the head just kind of are like...
Yes, it's so cool.
And that's kind of the cool thing about that software that we were talking about that identifies whale sharks, just like how it identifies stars by looking at the patterns. I'm gonna go ahead and create another layer. We'll call this dot layer. Dots.
Oh, that's another perk of working with your keyboard, right? You can quickly just type out the layer names, because sometimes just with the iPad it can be kind of tricky to pull up the keyboard.
Right.
More cumbersome.
And I wonder if there's a dot brush. If we go back to our brushes.
Dun dun. I bet there is.
Sarah's got some dots.
Well, Sarah is the artist that did the dots.
Oh, look at
that. Man.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay, let's go ahead and change that to.
Getting real hype here. There's a lot happening right now, you guys.
Should we add a little yellow to that? Maybe.
Maybe.
Because I mean,
I like
whale
it.
sharks.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Cool.
let's change so that's a little
Little too close.
Dense.
What if we
Yeah.
go and we change our brush properties,
settings.
scattered a little bit more? Stamp count, was that what we did? No. Scatter?
Ooh, scatter.
Yes, you might want to
Mhm.
scatter. It gets a little crazy though, a little unpredictable.
It's more like bunches of dots.
Yeah.
Yeah. That brings us back to art history. When you study Seurat,
Yeah.
what is that painting? The jetty or
Pointillism?
all those people who are
Oh, the
Yeah,
one at
it's
the
the
park with the
pointillism.
monkey.
they're at the
At the
park.
picnic.
Yeah. It's like everyone's picnicking on that
Yeah.
shore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that
That's
one.
cool. You can find brushes that are kind of like inspired directly from it. We knew what it was without even checking it out.
That's
Right?
cool.
Seurat.
I don't know if this is
It like works maybe for only like the really tight areas.
maybe, you know what we'll do is we'll just use it as a texture. So let's select a variant of this green and maybe tone it up a bit or brighten it a bit.
Brighten it.
And
Okay.
then, okay, that's too much. But we can go back to that color. And so I use the ink dropper tool quite a lot. As you can see, I'm not even really going into, oh, it's still coming out. I'm not really even going into the
color palette
pre-made
at the
color
bottom. Yeah.
palettes. Yeah. Okay, that's more subtle.
There we go. Yeah, I was
Hello.
gonna say you could play with the blend modes or transparency too if you wanted to give
Yeah.
that texture effect.
And again, if I
Yeah.
wanted to do it in an alpha channel lock, I could go to this whale shark layer, and again, you click that lock transparency button. See that right there, unlock and lock. So if you lock the
Okay.
transparency button, you'll see that little checkerboard and the lock signal. And then if I do any of these patterns, it'll stay within the
That
shark,
boundary.
which
That's
maybe that'll be
cool.
kind of fun.
I actually kind of like that texture. It might help with creating like the shadows of the dimension of the anatomy, right?
Maybe.
That hump or
Yeah.
something like that. Even
Yeah,
if it's
maybe.
not
Mhm.
maybe
Right.
then you don't have to do as many lines.
yeah. And
Oh,
they are fish, you know, they're
Mhm.
sharks that have scales. So we want to kind of build some sort of.
Oh yes, this is a whale shark pop
whale
quiz
shark.
question I have
yeah.
for you.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh.
Okay, for everyone in the chat. It's for everyone in the chat.
Okay.
Are whale sharks whales or sharks?
Dun, dun,
If you
dun.
know, you can drop the emoji in the chat. I'm gonna go ahead try and drop an emoji. I don't know if I think that there's an emoji for both. Yes, so drop a whale emoji if you think a whale shark is a whale, and drop a shark emoji if you think a whale shark is a shark. What do you guys think? I'm sure you know.
Dun, dun,
Dun,
dun, dun.
dun. We don't want to give it away.
Should I give it away?
Yeah, give it away. Give
Okay,
it
I'll
away.
give it away. It is definitely a shark.
It's a
shark.
shark.
Yeah,
Yes, I
shark.
just dropped in the shark emoji for everyone in the chat. I love that. I feel like they're so gentle that you could think that they're whales.
Whales.
And they're so
Yeah.
giant.
I
Yeah,
think
they're huge.
they're given that name because of the slowness of the way they move and the way that they
And
feed.
how big they are.
How big they are, but they feed on small little krill and plankton, much the way a whale would. They're
Mhm.
filtered feeders.
Yes.
Yep.
And I don't know, they're just so beautiful.
Mhm.
Did
I've
you
never
also
seen
know
one.
do you know what do you think the size is of the largest confirmed whale shark?
Ooh.
18 meters.
Yes, that's because we both done our research. 18 meters, but how much is that in feet?
I don't know.
That's
Well-
the real question.
Well, a
I
meter
know,
is
I know.
roughly 3
It's 61
so
feet, right
61,
about.
there we
yeah.
go.
Just for everyone
Love it.
watching and trying to understand a little bit more on like the perspective, right? Like how big are these
They're
creatures?
big.
The biggest one is 61 feet. I can't even
Oh my
put
gosh.
that in
That is
perspective.
definitely
How many
whale size.
stories is that? Like that's really, really tall.
It's at least 6 stories.
Yeah. It's like that's huge. So I don't know, just a little fun facts for you guys in the chat because we're talking about whale sharks in honor of the #CreateWaves campaign between
Yay.
Adobe and the Ocean Agency. We have to help out the whale sharks because they're
Yes.
endangered.
Yeah.
Are they endangered or Yeah, I think that they are, right?
Yes.
They need to
They're
be
endangered.
conserved. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also very much target for finning, which is the
Yes.
practice of catching these sharks just for their fins, which is it's a really
Depressing.
depressing thing that we do as humans. But okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And I found out as well that they are migratory, but they also are always at this island called Mafia Island in Tanzania. That's where they like chill at, and you can like see them there a lot. So
Yeah.
it's a big part of their tourism. And is it it's Tanzania? I am questioning the way I'm pronouncing everything.
Tanzania.
Everyone,
I
there
think
you go.
Tanzania. The Africa, right? Yeah.
Maybe.
I think so. They're,
Maybe I couldn't say.
There's a lot in that sort of Madagascar, Indian Ocean. But I know you'd mentioned yesterday that you'd snorkeled in Cozumel or Cozumal.
Yeah.
And I believe they also
Mexico.
have, in Mexico and in Cozumel. Didn't Pangaea see the?
Mhm.
Yeah. So they're kind of all over.
They're all over except the Mediterranean Sea.
Oh, okay.
They're not
No
there.
Mediterranean.
Gotcha.
They're not vibing with the Mediterranean Sea. But yeah, so that's a cool
Ooh.
fun fact. Just a little education on the whale shark, since we're trying to raise awareness here through this piece. I thought I would throw out some facts. Clearly you guys had also read up on these whale shark facts, but that's just for anyone tuning in. And as a little reminder for everyone who's tuning in here today, right now you're watching Matt and Roxy of Wooden Wave Art create this piece in Adobe Fresco in honor of the hashtag Create Waves campaign. We're talking all things about whale sharks, about art, about process, about Adobe Fresco. And if you have questions for them, bring it to the chat and we can talk it out.
Yeah.
Amazing. And a little reminder, if you're tuning in from YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our Adobe Live channel so you don't miss the next stream. For all of our YouTube viewers, I want to give you a little reminder. Okay, Matt,
Good.
what's going on here? What are you
All right.
thinking? What's next?
Next,
Tell us
we've
about
got-
what's in your art mind.
the art mind is spinning back to the dots because we've just kind of laid down a lot more of that texture with that Syrah brush.
Yes.
And back to the dots. So let's pick another brush.
I think it's time to bring in some contrast.
Okay. Yeah. So like a white or a yellow. What do you
Yeah.
think? And then also
A
the
really,
line-
really pale yellow.
pale,
There you go.
pale yellow.
White meets yellow.
Yes.
All right. So let's use what brush to use though. Maybe we'll just kind of keep it simple so that I can make a dot go-go brush. It's just like the name.
Let's
Yeah.
see what you get.
I'd go back to your favorites.
Okay,
You
let's
picked
go back
those
to
for a
favorites.
reason.
Yeah.
There's
Let's
a
go
reason they're your
back to,
favorite.
I think the Blake pen did a good clean yellow, a clean line. And then
Because some
light-
brushes, for listeners, some brushes, if they're square, you might have a harder time creating that circle. That one
Yes.
worked out nicely.
Yeah. I think I had to wiggle a little bit, but that's okay.
Wiggle,
Ooh,
wiggle.
that is stark.
It pops.
It
It does-
pops.
It is popping.
What do you think?
It's popping.
What if I
You could do one like that, and then if you don't like it, you can use the alpha lock. What's it called? No, the lock transparency.
Yeah, I
to
could.
switch it up if you wanted.
Or I could even adjust the layer itself in terms of its transparency.
Right.
There you
Lots
go.
of different ways to explore.
Okay, let's try this. Let's do a just a whole dot matrix here.
Okay.
And then one thing that's cool about these whale sharks, that I think is unreal and beautiful, is that they do have symmetry. So you see how that head has.
Oh.
So what if we do one side like this?
That is a
Flip it.
really like good
Flip
detail
it.
that you caught.
Yeah. Then each one is like a thumbprint. You know, each shark has a unique patterning.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's go ahead and go to our selection tools. Use a ellipse, and we'll select those dots. So I'm in the dots layer, and then I'm using my keyboard. I'm just going to do Control C, Control V, and I've now pasted that exact same thing. But if we go to our, we'll move it over, and then we'll rotate it. So you see how up in the top
Yes,
right
up on
corner,
the top right.
I mirrored it. Did I do the right mirror? Because there's a top bottom, or there's.
I think I think that you did. I think it's just
There it is. No,
turned. Yeah.
You flipped it again. I
wait.
think.
I'm confused.
We're gonna have to do it again. No, I'm kidding.
I think we do.
It's okay.
Let's just go and.
But either way, that's just a good way to replicate dots, so you're not having to
Fail.
draw every single one.
It's not a fail. It was an experiment, and we weren't paying close enough attention to the dots to see them. You're working on a very hard thing. If it was like a letter, you'd be able to see if it flipped, but like it's dots.
Okay, so it should be the side to side one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
Okay, done. I think you did it right the first time. We were just doubting ourselves.
Yeah, I think
And then
we did it.
maybe it needs to rotate down or up.
It makes sense because before you had it like this, so when it flips, it's turned. So you have to turn it again.
Well, that's the concept.
It's disappearing behind the line work, so that's why you're questioning it. Is because some of the dots are disappearing when you move it.
Does it
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
You know what? When I look at the margin on the edge here, it doesn't. I'm not able to like. Oh, there. No.
It's flipped. You see that little dot there is up there.
Okay, why don't we try it now like that?
Oh my gosh. Let's see.
Anyways.
Something's
either way-
happening.
Either way, we've got the dots.
Yeah.
Something's happening. We have dots.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's one thing maybe we didn't mention today that we talked a lot about yesterday was this idea that each whale shark has its unique pattern of we keep saying dots a lot. I was trying to say spots. Another word for dots. Spots.
Yeah.
Has their own unique pattern of spots, and so that's how biologists can track individuals in their migrations and their habitat over the course of their lives, and it's just a really cool thing that we're able to see. Like a lot of animals, they've got fur or something, and they might have a tracker on them, but it's hard to tell each individual from each other from a distance. But that's what's so amazing about these creatures is that biologists can take pictures from a drone flying above and then match that to photos that they have, and then using an algorithm that was developed to be able to identify star patterns, they're able to identify these individual whale sharks.
Yeah,
I love that. I think it's such a cool application of technology and just to help out the whale shark populations and learn more about them. I read a fact that that less than 10% of whale sharks born survive to adulthood. So that is crazy. And it goes to I feel like the reason I bring that up is because that would make sense then why tracking them is so important, right? Because if you're able to track one all the way up until adulthood or notice a new baby coming up and you want to make sure you're seeing what happens and how it grows up, that's essential to be able to recognize them.
Definitely. Wow, that's a sobering fact.
It is.
I know, but on a positive note, those that do survive may live to be 150 years old.
Whoa, I didn't know
There
that.
you go.
So
That's awesome.
that's
Some
the other half
long-lived
of that
sharks.
fact there for you guys. Yes.
Phew.
Yeah. So the ones that do live a really long, happy life, but very fulfilled life.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for the upside.
Upside.
Of course.
I wonder
Okay.
too. I mean, that's the things that we don't know because they've never, seen them give birth or that kind of thing. Is like how many babies can one have over that 100
I
year life?
know. That's a good question. We'll have to get some marine biologists in the chat dropping some knowledge for us.
If there are any.
Yes,
feed,
exactly.
please
Let
help
us
us
know
out
what
here.
you know. Okay, so what brush are you using to create these stripes? I'm
Right
curious.
now, yeah,
Is
right
it the
now
same
I'm
brush?
still in that Blake brush, and I'm not necessarily sold on it.
I kind
Because
of like it.
okay, yeah,
I think you just need to keep going.
Just
to see
keep going?
where it
All
goes.
trust the process.
Trust
the process.
All right.
And
hard
now
to
you're
tell.
following those lines that you created in
Yeah.
your sketch layer.
Right.
So that's where those are coming in. I think that's super important because it really is providing a lot of that depth that otherwise you would just have a
You
flat
might
shape.
want to up the smoothness to it. What are you on right now? Just because it's.
Ooh, look at
it-
that though.
it
Doesn't
is
that look?
looking
What's the word when it's glowing? The
glow-
bioluminescent.
bioluminescence. Yeah.
I can do that. Let's do some
I don't know. I'm just
smoothing.
wondering where you were on this one. This is how we work together. It's like,
No,
You're like,
we wanted that wobbly.
that's her
might-
saying up the
you
smoothness.
might want to up the smoothness there. No, Roxy, I love that. I feel like that's hilarious, and I can see how it might help for it to be smoother
Noted.
or not.
Like,
Yeah.
let's
Got
just see
it.
where we're at. Like, where are
Yeah.
we on the smoothness
Yeah,
toggle?
I think you're right. You know, it's interesting when you up
That
the
way you don't have to
smoothness,
work as hard to get it smooth. You know, it's like, are we really?
it slows down. There's a little bit of tracking when it slows down.
Oh yeah,
Gotcha, gotcha.
naturally.
But
Yeah.
maybe we'll find a happier
Just
medium.
checking. Yeah.
For
But I'm
sure.
gonna add
And
in a little
on.
bit of like variation because it's not just
because they're not the
Yeah.
most even lines,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
but there's
And
have-
Cody in the chat has a really good point that
Mhm.
the dots have helped a lot with the depth that you were talking about earlier. Like,
Mhm.
because the dots on this one that you're working on are big, and the ones on the smaller sharks
right.
are smaller, and it kind of corrects us from thinking those are baby sharks, whale
Right.
sharks. So
Hmm.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Good catch there, Cody.
Thank you, Cody.
Thanks. Yeah, I think the contrast kind of helps
I'm liking it. Yeah.
make it pop off the background too, because
Right.
the background and the color of the whale shark are very similar right now.
Yeah.
So it's making it a little flat. I think that contrast is kind of bringing it forward a little
Interesting.
bit more.
It's funny how you're doing these dots and you're thinking like, is there a faster way to do this? And in the time it takes sometimes for you to like figure out a system of copy and paste and slide and merge your layers, you could have done all those dots just by the old school putting them down.
That's
you
true.
know?
That's true.
So,
Especially because you're following like a curvature. So
Yeah,
it's not as
exactly.
easy as just dropping in like a
Mhm.
bunch of dots.
yeah,
It's a
that's
little bit more
right.
methodical.
maybe
But you
I'll-
can kind of zone out. Do you ever feel like when you're doing things that are repetitive like this, you kind of like
Yeah.
enter this meditative zone?
yeah,
Definitely.
And
That's
that-
when a podcast comes in.
that's podcast time. Exactly. That's what I was gonna
You
say.
can just like zone out, listen to someone else talking, or watch a stream like this and listen in the background as you work.
Yeah.
you know?
Have no thoughts of your own, right? You're
I
just
gotta,
like, it's empty up here.
I gotta watch my resting drawing face because it'll just turn into like,
Yes. Or you ever get really close to the screen
yeah, or just squinting like too long.
when you can just zoom in?
Yeah.
You know, so that we're on Fresco for iPad. You can just zoom in, everyone.
can
You don't have to
zoom.
be so close.
Okay, this is a question
That is
for
the
everyone.
beauty of working digitally.
As we all work digitally nowadays, how many times do you go up to a analog image and try and pinch zoom it?
I do it all the time.
So embarrassing. I do
Sometimes
it.
because I don't use the keyboard, because I know you have a keyboard there,
Yeah.
and that's cool. But
Oh,
I
right.
use the 2-finger double tap.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm working on something traditionally, I'm like tap tap. I'm like, wait, hold on. I can't just undo that. I
You're trying to
have
undo
gone
your
insane.
paintbrush.
Yes, I cannot just undo something I just
Oh, if
drew.
only we could.
Yes,
It
we'll
would
get
be
there, I'm
fun.
sure someday.
So
But
fun.
that is a really, really good question. Let us know in the chat if you've tried to do some digital, what's it called? Tapping
Gestures.
or gestures. There you go
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
your paper.
Zoom in.
Oh, I'm getting into the
Scroll.
flow now.
It's quite embarrassing, even if you're by yourself. You're just like, wow, I'm a fool, right?
Yep, I just did that. Ooh.
It's like
Yes.
someone needs more sleep.
Yes,
Yeah.
Cody says she's doing that too. That's hilarious. Okay. Yeah, I know it is super embarrassing, and I've also done it to photos, like real
Mhm.
photos.
Like when you
Yeah.
want
Where
to
I'm
zoom
like-
in. And yeah.
I'm like, wait, hold up. Oh wait, I can't.
I mean, if everyone's doing it, maybe that's just a problem with society. We need to make photos that are real photos that do that now.
Yeah,
Just need
I
to
can see it
just need to go all the way to the digital dark side.
Oh my gosh.
for sure. Okay.
Well, that would be actually a question for the audience too. How
Mhm.
many people
Mm,
work primarily digitally or primarily in traditional media? You know, I feel like a lot of people maybe dabble in both, but you know, is it primarily
Yes.
one or the other?
Which,
Like, are you
one?
here watching because you're, you know, starting to lean more digitally and you're
Mhm.
wanting to learn more about it? Or if you're just a digital native and so this is just
True,
your
yeah.
jam.
Yeah, let us know in the chat which one you're gravitating towards. Personally, I definitely feel like I straddle both.
mhm.
I never finish one without the other. I feel like I do a lot of things traditional and then to the iPad and then finish it up traditionally somehow.
Mhm.
So that's where I'm at. I'm loving how this is all coming together. It's
Let's
beautiful.
zoom out, see how it's helping the image along.
Just as a heads up, soon we'll be going in for our artist spotlight.
Woo-hoo.
I'm so excited. It's going to be in about a minute or so. So you can, it kind of works out perfectly if you want to wrap up this shark that you're on.
All right.
Yay.
I think that's pretty much.
Yeah, there's not much detail on their tails, right?
No, just there's a few more dots, and I think we're ready to check out this other artist.
Ooh, I'm
Also
excited.
doing
I'm
motion
excited.
inspired.
Yes, I love her work.
Oh, we have someone in the comments saying that they try to do a keyword search when they're reading a book. Like they like want to look up a word and then they can't because it's not a digital book. That's a really good one. I feel like that happens. You can look up dictionary definitions or whatever.
You're like,
Good one.
define
Yeah.
transpose or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like a real book.
Yes.
No, I can definitely identify with that person. I'm
Yeah.
a big reader, especially at night, and that's something. Yep.
Yeah.
I
feel
can see that happening for sure. Thanks for your feedback, Kirk. So we all feel less alone in
I
our
know. I feel better.
minds, right? Okay, so it's time
Right.
for our artist spotlight, everyone. So just a little reminder, after the artist spotlight, we'll have about 10 more minutes here with Wooden Waves. So get your questions in now, drop them in the chat now. That way, when we come back from the artist spotlight, we still have some time to discuss and answer all of your questions. But for today's artist spotlight, let's see if we can maneuver over to that page where we're going to share the person's art.
Sure.
It's happening.
Go here.
We're going to show you guys this person's art. It's amazing. Remember, you can always highlight an artist through the artist spotlight. Okay, here we are. We have Diver Amon. I'm so excited to be sharing this person's work. They're an illustrator and a diver, and they create a lot of work about the ocean and fish. And it makes a lot of sense for today's stream, which is all about ocean I can't say this word, conservancy, I think is how you say it. I have it in my mind. But yeah, let's pop in and take a look at their work, guys. Open up any items here.
That sounds fun.
Oh, I love those fish.
So neat. I love the pattern too.
belly.
It's very satisfying, right? You can like feel like you're watching this little sliver of the ocean. And there's so much detail going into this fish. Really reminds me of the piece that you're creating today, right? Like you can see all
love
that
it.
texture of the fish,
Mhm.
the light.
Highlights.
This is actually one of our son's favorite fish.
Yep.
So that's
yeah.
why I was drawn
What
to
fish
it.
is it? Do you know?
Yeah, in Hawaii, we would call this an ulua, but the scientific name or regular name
General
is trevally or jackfish.
Interesting.
And they're
Trevally.
trevally, and
Are they big?
They're big. They can get really big. They can be small,
The
but
giant trevally. is
giant
the
trevally, yeah. And they live on the reefs, and they're kind of the alpha fish of the reef besides a shark. So
Oh,
they can be
wow.
kind of the bullies.
Yeah,
Are they
the-
aggressive fish? Like if I ran into it, would it like
They
me
would
It'd be hard to find one in the first
Got
place.
it.
They're,
Okay.
a little
yeah,
bit more
it's-
elusive.
we're not talking piranhas here, but they are.
that's what I was thinking. You
They're
read
just
my mind.
they're not like hunting you or anything like that. But
They're just hunting smaller
And
fish.
they're-
If you
and
were a
they're-
small fish, they'd
yes,
they'd want
you'd
you.
be in trouble if you're a little guppy.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, this piece is amazing. There's so much detail in the line work and the texture and all those little bubbles. But what else do we have here?
Ooh, he does some
Wallpapers.
wallpapers.
Whoa, those are
Nice.
super cool.
Snapper. What's that other one? The uku.
Yeah. that's-
I don't know my way around fish, but I feel like, there's so many here. And they just look
Oh,
like
there you
so
go.
realistic. Look at that. That's the one that she just created. That we just saw. Sorry. Amazing. A lot of different kinds of fish. Let's see. Ooh, that piece there looks a little different. The one in the center there with the
yeah,
reef.
let's take a look.
Oh,
There you
I
go.
love
Yeah.
Oh,
that.
and this is her piece for
Perfect.
the Ocean Agency.
Yeah.
Yes, because everyone can submit a piece for the #CreateWaves campaign. This seems to be her piece for the project, for the campaign. This is so cool. There's so much happening There's some sharks there.
Yeah.
I think those are sharks. I'm not.
Yep, those
Yeah,
are
they
little
are.
leopard sharks, probably.
I'm like, am I wrong?
I think so.
It says
And-
that the it's a self-portrait called Vortex.
Vortex.
Yeah.
Some coral
Ooh.
reefs.
This artwork represents the continuation of life in the ocean for future generations. I've been super fortunate to have grown up in New Zealand, in and around the ocean for most of my life. So their connection to it is really strong. I love that. This is beautiful. And there's so much texture and light and cool compositioning happening in
Yeah.
this piece. I love it. It's amazing.
I like the way the sparkle of the water is kind of overlaying on the leopard sharks and on the
Yes.
sand bottom. So that's a really cool way
Yeah, there's also like that shadow of that
Yeah.
same like grid
Uh-huh.
happening. There's a
Yeah.
lot to give it some depth. What else can we see from
Let's
this
check
artist?
them out. Yeah,
Let's bounce
go
out.
back. Ooh,
Oh, look, she's a whale
that's
shark
a
piece.
whale
Let's check out
shark.
the whale shark one.
Wow.
Oh my
All right.
gosh.
Nice.
Let's see. Wow.
Yep.
She's
There,
swimming with the
This
there it
is
is.
so cool.
There's the dots and the ridges.
Yes.
Oh, it's a kelp forest, and that's maybe referencing. She's from New Zealand, and
Yeah.
they have colder water, so they probably have kelp forests over there.
That's
It
so
looks
cool.
like she dives
I'm,
all
I'm
over.
so glad that there's like this. There's like so many references to the whale shark and to what we've been working on for the past couple days too.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm really interested in that one on the right. That like
This one?
yes, that
Spiraling.
one.
Yeah.
But it's a video. I don't know if oh, there we go. Amazing. Look at
Fun.
all of that.
Oh, there's the dots.
Lots of dots.
More dots. Those dots also feel very luminescent.
Yes. Yeah, that's cool.
So
And
neat.
it's cool to create like a school of fish because they all sort of are moving in a similar direction. They create a form in the way that they're spiraling.
Yes.
The idea of
Mhm.
movement. That's really good.
Mhm.
Ooh, there's some more sharks.
Yes.
That's-
Open something else up. Oh, amazing. Oh, look at all those different kinds of prints. These videos are a really nice way to just see like the overall
I like that,
kind of
yeah.
artwork.
Mm-hmm.
There's
That's
a
a good way
lot
to-
of different compositions.
Push people towards maybe if you have a print store or you have your web shop.
Right.
Exactly. You
Give
guys
them
can check
that.
out her work on the stream. Go check out her shop. What else do we have
That one.
here?
Well, here, let's go.
I like this one because it
Okay.
looks like it's a night shot.
Ooh,
Yes.
Midnight Snoop.
Ah,
You were
Midnight
right.
Snoop.
I like
Going
that.
for a snoop.
Yeah.
This is so cool, and I feel like it has some of the elements of the one we saw before, the self-portrait kind of one, but
Mhm.
in a totally different composition but like
at that.
similar textures, right?
So what's really cool is she's above and below the water. There's parts
Yeah.
of her body that are above because she's at the surface, and there's parts that are below, so she's working with transparency and depth.
Mhm.
And then I really love the implication of that flashlight. Just a-
Yes.
Mhm.
That is really cool, and that like automatically helps us, the viewer, understand that this is at night, right? Like
night
that
shot.
there's like a contrast, because
Yeah.
maybe without that you would just have a
Right.
harder time reading it.
Yeah, you might think it's underwater too.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Super cool. And there's like fishes in there. There's like
Oh,
a
yeah.
shark on the right.
There's a
Hidden
shark
little hidden little gems all throughout
Oh.
this piece, which is, the ocean is like that. So that's very,
Right.
very cool.
there. I think she's working with the idea of that bioluminescence.
Yeah.
So where the reef glows or the
Mhm.
plank. It's usually algae based, but anyways, they'll glow. Or when the coral is spawning, it'll.
Yeah.
Ooh,
It'll glow.
interesting. I've never heard that term before. But that's cool.
Not
I love it. And I like that there's like little fish that she's
Mhm.
highlighting with the flashlight. Amazing work here from Divermon Art. I love it. This was amazing. Anything else you guys want to comment on their work? They have so much amazing work to look at.
Yeah. No, it's so cool. I just love like the color usage and bringing attention to nature is
Mhm.
always
Needed
something that we're
in
really
this
excited
world.
about.
Yes.
Smart
Yeah.
smart usage of templates. So the phone template. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
really cool one.
It's another just other ways to like
Right.
showcase your art
Right.
online. I
Yeah.
feel like
Mhm.
Look at how
if
there's
you
a
struggle with
shadow.
that.
Yeah, over here.
Even the
Mhm.
implication of a shadow over those prints.
Mhm.
It just kind of gives you a sense of like, oh, if I had this print up in my patio and I have like a palm frond shadow, it has
Yes.
a mood to it, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, you could be like, oh, I could see this fitting into
Your
so and
house.
so's house, right? Or
Mhm.
my house or this space. So it's just another cool way to sell the idea of your artwork
Mhm.
beyond just the artwork itself. How you
Kid would
present
love
it
that
is
one.
equally important.
I know. I was just thinking that's how I was drawn to it. Our
Yeah.
kid would love this
Yeah, our
print.
kid would go.
Oh,
We might have to
I
visit
love
her
it.
online shop.
Yeah, he would just.
Yes, let's all go visit Divermont's online shop. Check out all their cool work. This has been amazing. I'm so glad we were able to highlight this person's art. It's so cool and it's so on topic for today's live stream. Before we move on, you guys, don't forget to submit your recommendations for creatives to highlight for our next artist spotlight. Just head over to the artist spotlight tab at the top of the chat on Behance to send your nominations. If you're watching on YouTube, you may not see this little tab, but if you jump over to our Behance live stream, you'll see the tab right there to submit your nominations, and maybe we'll highlight your work next time. So just drop your nominations in, and you never know. Okay, now we're back at this piece.
I'm
We're
inspired. Yeah, seeing her
So nice to take
her
a
use of light.
little creative inspiration.
Yes.
We've got a little time. What we have, like maybe
10
10
minutes?
minutes.
We have like
Okay.
10 minutes, 10
All right.
working minutes, 15
Let's do
full
some
minutes.
furious
Um,
dot making.
That's some furious dot
Make it
making.
rain dots.
Yes, I guess this is how it goes, where like in the real world you would have maybe a whole
Yeah.
week just to do the
Mhm.
color part. So we're working in a sped up fashion here in
A
Adobe
peek into
Fresco.
the process.
Yes.
A peek into the process.
Yes.
Those dots.
For those who are just joining us, we're here with Matt and Roxy of Wooden Wave Art working on this
Hi.
whale shark piece
Matt.
on Adobe Fresco on the iPad. Matt is furiously now making these dots.
There's like a soundtrack.
He's getting stressed. He's like,
In
oh
my-
no,
No, don't get stressed. No.
I'll make them nice.
These are gonna look great. These are gonna look great.
They look pretty good when you zoom out.
That is the beauty, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like you can zoom in
That'd
and
be
then
perfect.
do this, and then when you zoom out, you're like, that looks great.
Yes.
I do
and-
want to see all of the stripes and everything because I feel it'll really light it up. But
That's true.
it's a lot of
Okay, go for
stripes.
it. Okay, go for it.
And we also have the stars too, which are even more dots. So for anyone who maybe missed the concept of this drawing earlier, it's like the whale sharks are, what are we saying, like swimming or diving towards the
Mhm.
sky / sea. It's conceptually.
Let's
you
say
know.
we'll have stars up here. We can
There
actually.
you go.
Yeah.
Oh, look at those stars coming together so fast.
You know, there's an interesting randomness to doing stars so that they don't feel like they're on a grid, and I really feel strongly about, like, when I do my stars, I'm always like, don't make it seem like they're all, like right now.
evenly spaced.
Yeah, like this looks like it's
you
on a grid. You know what I mean?
Got it. Yeah, you wouldn't want that unless you're trying to make like a formation, right?
Right,
Like
exactly.
A little dipper or something.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of like a pattern of like put some
It's
really
a random quirk that he has because we've done a lot of paintings with night skies, and that's his pet peeve is when they like
It looks
sometimes
too
we're talking
perfect.
about we get into that meditative zone and it looks like almost like graph paper or something where the
Right.
spots are too regular,
Right.
and he's just like, oh no, they got too regular, like they need to
Yeah.
be
A
more
very-
random,
yes,
like-
like bigger, smaller,
close. It's the tendency to want to like spread out, and
Right,
that
right.
ends up becoming a pattern after a while. So
it's like too evenly covered,
Yeah,
right? You need
you'll
like
notice-
sparse areas and then
Right.
denser areas.
I'll put a big
Right.
one, and then I'll put another big one, and then I'll put one kind of next to it.
tiny little friend.
Yeah.
Yes, everyone in the chat totally agrees with you that it's a very specific kind of random.
Yeah.
It's the right random that you're after,
Right.
and it can be very
Right.
difficult.
Oh, I'm glad we're doing
Um,
that now.
It's like your
because-
mind wants to put things
Yes, everyone in the
orderly.
chat is talking about this, like agreeing with you, Matt. So I think it's everyone's on team Matt here. No, I'm kidding,
Yay.
Roxy. And we have this person here from their name in the chat is Clever Devlin. Their suggestion here is draw dots in spirals to prevent the look of rose.
Ooh.
Oh,
So maybe if you were to go like that, and then
Okay.
like
Yeah.
so
Okay.
that kind of and I guess that would also give you
It
that
gets
atmosphere too,
It's
right?
just a way to not, instead of our mind like it goes linear
Flat.
like writing,
Yeah.
you know. So when you do it in
Yeah.
a spiral, it automatically randomizes.
And it gets
for
tighter
you.
too as it gets closer, maybe. So you'll vary up the width.
Well, it doesn't have to
Yes.
get tighter, I guess. It could. Well, I guess it has to.
It might give you
You can
the
leave space.
perspective
working.
of being like in a circular atmosphere.
Yeah.
You know, like
Whatever
on a
it
planet.
is, it's
That
working.
could happen too. Thank you
Amazing. Yes, amazing suggestion from clever Devlin.
for the trip. Very clever.
That was super
Yes.
clever, and I'm going to be using that in real life. I'm doing that. That's what I'm
There
doing.
we go. There we go.
Build it.
Remember, guys, drop your questions. If you have questions for these two, you can drop them in the chat, whether you're on YouTube or on Behance. Drop your question in the chat and we'll get it answered for you. Before we wrap up the stream, get your questions in.
Cool. I like the stars coming in.
I am loving these stars. I think it's so cool and already made it like sold the idea a little bit more.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, there's something magical about stars, you know. It's just like this skyscape that makes you feel so small and yet part of the universe at the same time.
And
Whenever
the
you look at
stars
stars, right?
also kind of could be perceived as like water bubbles,
Mhm.
right? There's like a lot of similarities between the sea and the sky when you're talking about drawing it.
You know what I'm just
Nice.
thinking right now is inspired off of Divermon's feed where she did that one flashlight. Now, I'm not
Yeah.
going to do that, but what if we had the idea of like the stars that are on the dots that are on the head of the whale shark are just kind of exploding outward into our actual stars. And you'll notice
Yeah.
I actually moved the dot layer up above the line layers real quick. It was down here.
Got it.
And now I moved it up top here, and that's going to allow us to have the stars feel like
They're like lifting from
Yeah.
the whale.
Ooh.
Wait, one
I kind
more.
of like that idea because we're talking about the concept of the Hubble telescope algorithm identifying the stars and the pattern on the whale shark.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool for them to like lift.
Kind of fun.
Okay, we're getting somewhere.
Now
So
it feels
many
like they're
possibilities.
more like in the sky almost. Feels like they're floating
Right.
upwards.
Yeah.
Ooh,
So they're
wow.
not restricted by the outline of the shark necessarily. But
That's
they,
cool. And it's gonna help you fill some of those like spaces if you wanted to, right?
Yeah. So now that I have all these dots, what if I did go ahead and do a selection of those stars and then copy and paste? Because that'll help. That'll
Yes.
help save some time. Let's work.
Smart. We have so many tools at our disposal here in Adobe Fresco. May as well use them.
Mhm.
It's so nice when you learn a new tool and then you're able to apply it. It can be life-changing.
It
You know?
really, really can.
Whenever you see a video and someone shows you something new and you're just like, wow, where have you been all my life? And then you
Yeah.
can start applying it every time you add a tool to your toolbox. It's just
Mm.
Yeah, it just helps you
We
out a
love
little
that.
bit further.
Mhm.
Kirk Fetzer in the chat is loving this idea of the lifting stars. They said, cool idea. Communication vibe too. I think, it goes with that idea that we were saying.
Right.
So
Ooh, what's
Into
this
it.
one?
Thanks.
One layer must be selected. Let's get out of that.
what's going on here, Matt? Give
Oh no. I've
He's
got
trying
that
to copy his
confused
dots.
face right now.
He's trying to figure out
Okay, so done. Let's go done. All right, there we go. Okay,
the
okay,
dot
okay, okay.
copying.
So it looks like we gotta.
Mm.
That's where I kind of wish I could see what the layer names were.
Got it.
Where are my dots mainly? Not
Doom,
that
doom, doom.
one.
We've lost the dots.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
because
is
you know
labeled
why?
dots,
They're
right?
all sort of. Oh.
Did we draw on the wrong layer?
There's multiple layers, so let's go ahead and merge them down.
Okay.
Merge down, and let's merge this one down as well. Merge down. Where
It's
is
nice
that?
to be able to merge down and kind of clean things up sometimes.
Do I see merge down? Oh, maybe I can't.
Did it not show up on that
Is
one?
it a group?
Merge layers and group. Okay, that's
we
good.
go.
And then I
There
can
we
go
go.
merge down. Boom. Now let's see. Is it all
If
the
anybody
stars are on
missed
one
the-
layer? Okay.
If
Okay,
anybody
all
missed
the
it, then you
stars
can
and
show
the
where
dots.
text was. Nice.
Yeah. So this is this little triple dot button over here on the right. That is
Merges all the way on the bottom.
yeah, merges all the way on the bottom. And then if you select your layer, usually it's also the same thing. So I don't know. it's
Yes,
interesting
we're
how-
connecting the dots here. No, that's I just stole that from Clever Devlin, who just commented that. So shout out to Clever.
Thanks,
Clever for coming in with the clever puns here.
Yay. We are big fans of puns, so bring them all.
So it's welcomed. It's welcomed. Amazing, amazing.
Yeah, we thought of the name of the Punishers, but I don't know what application that has. But
sounds aggressive.
There's a pun off.
That's aggressive pun art. Well, actually, when I was on Making It, I was on this show Making It. This is kind of a side.
So
it's
Making
with Amy
It,
Poehler and Nick Offerman, and it's like a craft show
on NBC.
And I was on there as one of the contestants, and they are like master pun craftsmen and women. Yes, enthusiasts.
Yeah.
But Amy and Nick are just like.
Well, they have the pun game. Yeah.
They have these pun offs as part of the show. Yeah.
Got it.
If you go to Making It's Instagram, they have those.
Yes, and you can check that out right on your Instagram too. I know you posted a lot about it on your Instagram about the show and your experience there too. Yeah, for anyone who wants to check it out.
Okay, so I
tell me what's going on here. What you're gonna do? Yeah,
so I mirrored. I just wanted to create a few more stars, and I'm gonna make them a little smaller. I'm gonna kind of spatter them throughout the piece just to sort of speed up our star creation process. Press done. Areas outside will be cropped.
There's a lot of words that are kind of related to spatter, like spatter, splatter, and then also smatter.
Spatter, smatter,
splatter.
Lots of wordplay coming in here. Cody says that she loves Making It, so you have some fans in the chat.
Thank you.
Yes, perfect. And then we have one last pun I'm going to read from Clever, because it's all pun and games until someone loses an eye. So there you go. So
this is so true.
So true. Just as a heads up, you guys, you have about 5 minutes left before we have to wrap up the stream. So maybe take a couple minutes here to finish it up in a sense, or give us a little preview of what you think is next.
All right.
What maybe you're still going to do offline.
Offline, I think we're probably going to go ahead and figure out a little bit with this white space, what we're going to do. Probably clean up the pencil lines.
Okay.
But definitely I would want to continue to add in those, those yellow lines on all these sharks to kind of give it that luminescence. Maybe one other thing is just do some smudging. And that's one little brush tool that I haven't talked about, but that smudge tool up in the top left hand corner where I just toggled, you can go ahead and use that to kind of blend your background color. So that's something
let's see. Give us a little preview since we have some time.
All right. So
nice. It just kind of like moves it around.
Yeah. And because I had used maybe not that particular media, let's go back to our favorites. Recents. I guess because it's smudge, I don't have any recents. So let's go to painting. And since we're such a fan of Cezanne. Let's go and do that. All right. Size, strength, all these factors.
Play with it. Just make the brush your own, right?
Okay. Look at how that sort of.
Whoa, that was way more drastic.
Gives the implication of like bubbles and.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
It's got a little.
That's really cool. It's a good.
Ooh, that's fun.
That has a cool texture to it. Are you thinking of leaving the white areas white, or did you have something in mind for that?
Let's default to the color expert here.
Oh, me. Put me on the spot.
On the spot.
What do you think?
I would want it to be a bit lighter, but not white, but
we can do that right
kind of going to the, I would say, how we usually, when we do colors, we have like the dark tone and the light tone.
Okay.
I would go to the lighter tone of it.
Do you think a warmer color or a cooler color? Because we can just drop that right now.
I'd say like from Jack's poster, the light tone, would that one work? Since you use the dark tone.
Let's see, where is...
where'd it go? You might have hidden the layer on accident. At some point.
Did you merge it with something?
Oh, I probably merged it.
You merged it
That's
away.
All right. That's okay. We'll just use. Let's go ahead and pick a color from
one of the photos. Yeah, that's a cool little trick.
Okay, so I'll pick
maybe something
light and lighter than that. Yeah. What are you thinking?
Maybe bluer because it's going very green.
Okay. There.
Bum, bum, bum. Just to give it a shot. We've got
Yeah.
only
Yes, give it
couple
a
minutes
shot. Give
left,
it a shot.
There we go.
Try something for contrast.
You're gonna fill the layer. Do you have a new layer there? Or are you doing it in the
Yeah,
same
that's
layer?
a new layer.
Okay, good.
And
Playing
I
it
just
safe.
filled it. Yeah.
There
Ooh,
you
that's
go.
cool.
Yeah.
That's
I
cool.
like that.
It makes it like just kind of gives it a little bit more of a finishing touch, right?
Let's get rid of
There
this
we go.
colored thingy on the corner there. And
Perfect.
if we were to zoom in and kind of, yeah, you can kind of see how that's
Yes,
Kind
this
of
is
vibe
lovely.
to
I
it.
feel like you got through so much today in terms of color and
Yeah.
finishing up the sharks and the sky and the stars. There was so much. You went over color, the smudge tool, the direct selection wands, and just how to use the different transparencies to color in your work. So you've shown us, Matt, so much. Both the two of you have been amazing at sharing information about murals and everything. So if you missed that, be sure to watch the replay to get a little bit more information about their mural process, their collaborative process we talked about yesterday. So there has been so many nuggets of wisdom here on the stream. I can't thank you guys enough for sharing everything and for making this amazing piece to bring awareness to whale sharks everywhere around the world. Thank you guys so much for that.
Thanks for having us.
We had a blast. That was so fun.
Yes, it's been amazing. So thank you everyone who joined us throughout the stream. Thank you once again, Matt and Roxy. Be sure to follow them at Wooden Wave Art on Instagram and on Behance. And now stick around for the Premiere Pro Creative Challenge with Wojtek Plitcha and join us tomorrow morning with Adobe evangelist Kyle T. Webster for Brush Hour starting at 8 a.m. Pacific. Don't miss that. You'll learn a lot of cool stuff about brushes. And that's all I've got for you guys. See you guys next time. Thanks so much, Adobe friends, for hanging out with us. This has been amazing. Be sure to follow them everywhere.
Yay.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Yay,
Aloha,
thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.